Every city in Taiwan has its night markets. Shilen, Raohe, Fengjia, places where neon lights glide into steam from stall vendors, where the smell of stinky tofu mingles with grilled squid, where thousands of people squeeze through narrow alleys hunting for the perfect snack. But in Taipei, there's a night market that isn't on any tourist map. The locals call it Wangji Ye Shi, the forgetting night market. You can only find it if you're not looking for it, and once you find it, you'll wish you hadn't. David Chen was a Taiwanese American born in California, visiting Taiwan for the first time at 28 to reconnect with his roots. That's what he told his parents anyway. Truth was, he'd just broken up with his girlfriend, quit his job, and needed to be somewhere, anywhere else. Taiwan seemed like a safe choice. He spoke passable Mandarin, had distant relatives who wouldn't ask too many questions, and the flight was cheap. It was his third night in Taipei. He'd done the touristy things, Taipei 101, Longshan Temple, the usual night markets, but he wanted something real, something authentic, the kind of place locals went. So he wandered down side streets, away from the guidebook recommendations, following the sound of sizzling woks and the glow of red lanterns. The neighborhoods got older, the buildings more weathered, the streets narrower, and then he turned a corner and found it. The alley wasn't on his phone's GPS. It was barely wide enough for two people to pass, but the sound coming from it, laughter, music, the distinctive chaos of a night market, was unmistakable. A wooden arch marked the entrance, old and worn, with characters carved into it. Wangji Ye Shi. Forgetting night market, David muttered, translating. Weird name. He stepped through. It was exactly what he'd been looking for. No tourists, no English menus, just locals. Old people, young couples, families with children, crowding around food stalls that looked like they'd been there for generations. The smells were incredible. Oyster omelets, pork buns, bubble tea, fried chicken. Things he couldn't identify but desperately wanted to taste. The vendors called out in Taiwanese Hokkien, rapid fire and enthusiastic. Prices were marked in old Taiwan dollars, the kind his grandmother used to talk about. David figured it was just part of the vintage aesthetic. He bought a bowl of beef noodle soup from an old woman whose stall had no name, just a worn wooden sign with a hand-painted cow. The soup was the best thing he'd ever tasted. Rich, complex, exactly how his grandmother used to make it. Hao Chi Ma. Is it delicious? The old woman asked, smiling. Fei Chang Hao Chi. Very delicious, David replied. She nodded, satisfied. You come back tomorrow, I make you something special. David spent 3 hours wandering the market. He tried stinky tofu that didn't smell as bad as the tourist versions, played a ring toss game at a stall run by a man with no left arm, bought a jade pendant from a woman who read his fortune and told him he'd find what he was looking for, but lose something else. He laughed it off. Tourist fortune teller nonsense. By midnight, exhausted and full, he headed back to his hostel. He turned to take one last look at the market entrance, wanting to mark the location on his phone. The alley was gone, just a solid brick wall where the entrance had been. David blinked, checked his location, walked up and down the street. Nothing. No alley, no arch, no market sounds. Weird, he muttered. Must have taken a different turn. He'd find it tomorrow. Except the next day, David couldn't remember exactly where we'd been. He knew the general area, somewhere in Datong district, near the old streets, but every alley looked the same in daylight. He spent hours searching, getting increasingly frustrated. His hostel roommate, a local guy named Wei, noticed his distress. You looking for something? Wei asked. This night market I found yesterday. Wangji something? Amazing food. Wei's face went pale. Wangji Ye Shi. Yeah? You know it? Where exactly did you go? David described the area, the arch, the vendors. With each detail, Wei looked more disturbed. Did you eat anything? Wei asked quietly. Of course. Best beef noodle soup I've ever. Did you pay with money or with? Wei hesitated. Did they give you change? David thought back. Now that Wei mentioned it, the transactions had been strange. He'd handed over bills, but he couldn't remember receiving change. The vendors had just smiled and taken his money, and he'd been so caught up in the experience, he hadn't questioned it. Listen, Wei said, his voice tight. You need to tell me exactly what you ate, what you bought, who you talked to. Why? Because Wangji Ye Shi isn't supposed to exist anymore. It burned down in 1964, killed everyone inside, vendors, customers, everyone. Over 100 people died. David laughed nervously. Come on, that's just a ghost story. The story goes, Wei continued, ignoring him, that the market was so beloved, the dead couldn't let it go, so they rebuilt it. Every night, for people who are lost, people who are looking for something they've forgotten. But there's a price. What price? For every meal you eat, you forget a meal from your real life. For every item you buy, you forget something you owned. For every conversation, you forget someone you talked to. The market is called Wangji, forgetting, because it trades in memories. It gives you perfect experiences by taking real ones. David wanted to dismiss it as superstition, but something nagged at him. He tried to remember what he'd eaten for dinner 2 nights ago. Nothing came. He tried to remember his ex-girlfriend's name, the one he'd broken up with, the whole reason he'd come to Taiwan. Nothing. He could picture her face, sort of, but the details were fuzzy, like a photograph left in the sun. How do I stop it? David asked. Wei shook his head. You don't. You either stop going and live with what you've already forgotten, or you keep going back until there's nothing left to forget. David tried to stay away, he really did, but that night, lying in his hostel bunk, he could smell it. Beef noodle soup, exactly like the market, exactly like his grandmother's recipe. His grandmother. He tried to remember her face, couldn't quite picture it. Tried to remember her name, gone. Panicked, David got up and went walking. He told himself he was just getting air, clearing his head, but his feet knew where to go. The alley appeared like it had been waiting. The arch gleamed in the streetlight. The sounds of the market called to him. He stepped through. The old woman at the beef noodle stall smiled when she saw him. I told you to come back. I make something special. She handed him a bowl. The soup was even better than before. Impossibly better, like every good meal he'd ever had distilled into one perfect experience. As he ate, memories flickered and died like candles in wind. His childhood home, gone. His college graduation, gone. His first kiss, his favorite teacher, his best friend's name, gone, gone, gone. But the soup was transcendent. Why are you doing this? David asked the old woman. She sat down across from him, her smile sad. We're not doing anything, child. You are. Every person who comes here is looking for something, trying to fill a hole in their life. We just provide the meal. You provide the payment. I want to stop, then stop eating. David looked down at the bowl. It was still half full. All he had to do was put down the spoon, but it tasted so good, so perfect. So exactly like what he needed. He took another bite. Tell me, the old woman said gently, what are you running from? What hurts so badly that you'd rather forget everything than remember that one thing? David tried to answer, but he couldn't remember anymore. There had been something, some pain, some reason he'd come to Taiwan, but it was gone now, dissolved like sugar in tea. All that remained was the soup and the warm feeling of being exactly where he belonged. As David ate, he started noticing the other customers, really noticing them. That family at the next stall, the father was translucent in the lantern light. The couple buying bubble tea, they were wearing clothes from the 1980s. The children playing ring toss. They cast no shadows. David stood up suddenly, the spell breaking. You're all dead. Yes, the old woman said simply. We died in the fire, but we loved this place so much. We couldn't leave, so we stay. We sell our food. We welcome visitors, and in exchange, we get to remember what it was like to be alive. By stealing my memories, not stealing, trading, you get to taste perfection. We get to remember what it felt like to have customers, to have purpose. It's fair. How is it fair? I'm forgetting my entire life. The old woman's expression hardened. And what kind of life was it? You came here running away, didn't you? From pain, from failure, from something you couldn't face. Everyone who finds this market is running. We just offer an alternative. Forget the pain, forget the mistakes. Stay here, where everything is perfect. David backed toward the entrance. Other vendors were watching now, their eyes gleaming in the lamplight. Hungry. You can't leave with what you've taken, the old woman called after him. The market keeps what you've exchanged. If you go with the holes. I'll learn to live with them, David said. Will you? Do you even remember your name? David opened his mouth to answer. He couldn't. David, or the person who used to be David, stumbled out of the alley at dawn. Wei found him sitting on a curb, staring at nothing. How much did you eat? Wei asked quietly. I don't know. I don't remember. He looked up, his eyes unfocused. I don't remember why I'm in Taiwan. I don't remember where I live. I don't remember. His voice broke. I don't remember who I am. Wei sat beside him. That's why they call it the forgetting market. It's not just about what you lose. It's about what fills the space where your memories used to be. And that space gets filled with them. Their memories, their stories, their hunger to be remembered. Over the next few days, Wei tried to help. He showed David his passport. The name meant nothing. His phone, he couldn't unlock it. Forgot the password. His social media, the faces were strangers. But David kept vanishing at night. Wei would wake to find him gone, and in the morning he'd return with less and less of himself remaining. You have to stop going, Wei begged. I don't remember how to stop, David said, and his voice had changed. Older, feminine, speaking in Taiwanese Hokkien. The market is where I belong, where we all belong. We've been there so long, we can't remember anything else. You're not one of them. You're alive. Am I? David smiled, and it wasn't his smile anymore. I can't remember being alive. All I remember is the market, the stalls, the food, the fire. He blinked, confused. What fire? That was the last time Wei saw him. They say there's a new stall at Wangji Ye Shi now. A young man selling American-style burgers. Strange for a traditional Taiwanese night market, but the food is supposedly incredible, perfect, transcendent. He doesn't speak much, just smiles and takes your money. Never gives change. His name tag says David, but if you ask him about it, he'll tell you that's not his name. He can't remember his name. He's been at the market so long, working this stall, serving customers, that his old life seems like a dream. Sometimes, late at night, when there are no customers, he touches his face and wonders why it feels wrong. Why his reflection looks like someone he doesn't recognize. Why he sometimes thinks he should be somewhere else, doing something else, being someone else. But then the customers arrive, hungry and lost, looking for something perfect, and he smiles and serves them his burgers and forgets all about the questions. The market takes care of its own. If you're ever in Taipei, wandering the old neighborhoods late at night, and you find an alley that isn't on your map, with an arch that reads Wangji Ye Shi, keep walking. The food might be perfect, the prices might be cheap, the experience might be exactly what you're looking for. But ask yourself, what are you really hungry for? What hole are you trying to fill? And more importantly, what are you willing to forget to feel satisfied? Because the forgetting night market is always open, always welcoming, always hungry for new customers, and it never ever forgets to collect what you owe, even if you do.
Subscribe if